But explain to me just sort of why you state that integration is really high priority here in this grand power upgrade plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two things that you just mentioned that had kind of have to be separated. So there's a transition time or period that we have to work with relative to standing up the new substation and all the associated components, and we'll go through details on that, but also keeping the current system live and then kind of concurrently rely on both until we are solid with the new system, that all the glitches are out and we are comfortable where we can start talking about decommissioning everything else that has to do with steam. I mean, that's at the end of the day, one of the end games is to do away with anything that has to do with steam generation because of the cost and effectiveness and just the antiquated system and all that. So that would happen sometime in 2023 when we're again start to transition into the new system and then doing away with the old. Now, relative to the integration piece associated with the new system, it is as crucial as anything. And every piece that we're going to talk about today is very important because without any of those components, none of it will work. So if I can break it down and then we can just focus on each piece, right? So we're starting with the substation as the easier item. Basically it's a facility that will be constructed, owned, and operated by Entergy. Okay, that's just a one simple component that, again, it would be privately owned, but it would be positioned on what we call the West Power Complex, which is our property. The purpose of that substation, which there are many of them throughout the city that belong to Entergy, is to directly connect to the transmission lines in the vicinity and have a reliable and ample power, in this case 60 megawatts, that will be captured, captured from the transmission lines, and then the substation basically changes the makeup of that energy or that power to make it more usable for us. So that's what the purpose of the substation is basically changing it and lowering the voltage, so to speak, so it is more usable for our equipment. That's what substations do throughout the the city. In this particular case, this substation, while obviously it's new, it's going to enjoy some of the new technologies, but more importantly, it's going to have a lot of redundancy in it in terms of where the power that is coming to it. There are multiple sources. One will be coming from the north, one will be coming from the south, equally important, and then standing side by side. So if one is down, the other one is there to stand up in its place. Even within the substation itself, there are redundancies that are being built, or at least for now designed and contemplated to be built by Entergy to create, again, more redundancy within the substation itself to make it more reliable and because we will be using it as the primary source of power for us. So that's component one. If you have any questions, maybe we can finish that one.
I think you answered the one question I had, and you said 60 megawatt capacity, which is more than adequate to run everything you have, basically.
Absolutely. That number was designed and arrived at based on historic need with some factor of safety built in. And I mean, we could build it bigger or we can build it smaller, but at this, we think it's that optimum number that will serve us well today and in the future. So next key step is what we call the frequency changers, right? So those are designed, there will be 3 of them ultimately. We are in the midst of purchasing the first one. And the purpose or the function those serve is to change the frequency of what Entergy provides, meaning the 60 hertz, down to what we actually use in our equipment, meaning 25 hertz. So it's an adapter, so to speak, that changes the frequency to make that substation and the power it produces or provides usable for us. Okay, so those are very crucial pieces because without them, there's a disconnect and the substation is not useful for us. So just like we use the 25 hertz that we generate ourselves now into the pumps and other facilities and motors without needing frequency changer, then that the need is obviously more crucial because now it's coming in at 60. Also important to note is that while we currently use 60 hertz for other 60 facilities on Carrollton water plant, there's a lot of 60 hertz facilities that we use, and the power comes from different sources, different substations that are maybe not as strong or as reliable. They come through indirectly through the grid. Those will be replaced as well with the new substation without needing the frequency changer. I hope that makes sense. So there'll be a direct power connection to everything else on basically the entire plant, right? So it brings more efficiency, easier to quantify one account versus multiple accounts that we currently have. So there's a lot of efficiency associated with that. Now, the other very important piece is what we're calling the integration piece. How does the substation and how do these frequency changers combined now producing useful power, how do we connect to them, right? So now there are multiple pieces, and the biggest piece is called the switchgear. And this switchgear basically connected with another piece, which is a new central control, right? And that is connected with a grid control system. So those kind of like the part of that integration piece that take that power, again, dispatches it based on need, okay? Assigns voltage and wattage to where that power is needed in an automated fashion, but also regulating the voltage and the wattage that is being sent to any particular basically equipment, whether it's pump or something else, right? So that piece alone is very, very crucial. It's going to be stand up as a new facility, and without it, obviously nothing can be served with the new, right? But nothing can be served safely without these pieces, because too much voltage could really be dangerous. Not enough voltage or power could damage the equipment. So it's going to be, obviously extremely important to design, which is we are in the midst of that now. We're just the beginning stage of designing that integration piece that would allow, again, everything to be utilized optimally and safely. So that's the very crucial piece. So I will pause maybe for a question if you have it.
The one question comes to mind is, has anything ever been done from an integration project on this scale before? Is there anywhere you can look to and see best practices, or are we sort of, on new ground here?
This is not the first. This company that is a consulting firm that we just hired has similar experiences, because there are plants out there, whether it's universities or hospitals, where they rely on outside power as well as some self-generation. They have that integration piece happening. And so it's not brand new completely, but there are a lot of nuances associated with our plant that have to be factored in. For example, again, another component that has to be constructed to make this work is what we're calling the utility rack. And then what that is basically there is an existing system that is newer. For example, the pipeline coming into our plant is reliable, is fairly new, it is to be utilized. So we have to kind of connect that power supply, so to speak, the gas line, which is now located on the east side of Carrollton Water Plant, and we have to carry it all the way across to the West Power Complex. So that would be part of the utility rack that will be very likely above ground, very solidly and constructed to withstand obviously severe weather events, and then will be constructed to connect the gas pipes to the new, because everything there will be relying on gas. There's no steam, there's no diesel, we'll be relying on gas. Equally important, the other way is to run all these new power lines from that West Power Complex where all this energy is being provided, and carried it through all the way to connection points that currently exist within the plant. So that would be if you hear us talk about the utility rack, that is basically the conduit, so to speak, of providing power, but also taking on gas to generate power. So that's going to be, again, another component is being designed and would be built all as a one package at the end of the day to flip the switch, kind of rhetorically, and then have everything working at the same time, well integrated, safely and efficiently, and obviously reliably. So,
and a lot of what you've told me thus far addresses another question I had, that the integration process, the acquisition of another frequency changer, all of this can happen simultaneous to the construction of the substation. We don't need to have a done with one, move to two, then move to three. These seem to be multiple parts moving in sync, so to speak.
Absolutely, a lot of moving parts, and they're all actually virtually moving at the same time, maybe different paces, different stages, but the idea here is to have them all kind of being delivered, commissioned, tested, and all that all around the same time. So, there may be some slight waiting, one part waiting for the other, but all happening in 2023 with fingers crossed at the beginning of the third quarter of 2023, where everything is vetted, everything is commissioned and ready to serve, so to speak. So,
right. If I had to sort of come up with one word to summarize the concerns of customers of the city when it comes to not just the Sewage and Water Board, but Entergy's at play here as well, I think it would come with reliability. So I'd like you to address how we're currently reliant on frequency changers now, and the reliability has come into question here. Entergy clearly has blue sky outages that they deal with decent frequency. Speak to me in regards to how reliability would be addressed through integration. Like what all is sort of going to be built in to ensure that once we have this new substation, once we have new frequency changers in line, that we would see a more reliable power grid for the Sewage and Water Board.
Right. So obviously the goal is to build the best technology, well-designed substation. I mean, we're being extremely thoughtful. We have a lot of resources that are helping us, as well as Entergy relying on outside research to deliver the best quality product at the end of the day. But we have to be honest that, there's nothing that is 100% certain or reliable. And that's why where we haven't talked about it, and I was hoping we would, is that while substation will become the primary source, and we think it's going to be very dependable and reliable, but things will go wrong. I mean, it's a certainty. We just witnessed what happened earlier this year during the Mardi Gras Eve, and so sometimes Mother Nature will overwhelm any system that you build. And that's why we've been so steadfast about standing up a redundant system from within, meaning optimizing what we already have with T6. T6 is a modern very reliable turbine. We spend a lot of money on modernizing some of the components, some of the control units, as well as winterizing it. Yeah, I'm sure you know that it had limitations of when we can and cannot use it. That issue has been solved, right? So now we have T6 as a standalone, very reliable source of power from within our control, ultimately generating about 22 megawatts. Concurrently, we are in the midst of writing the specs and the specification basically for what T7 would look like. So that procurement process will happen, and T7 will also be on, within part of that package on the West Power Complex around the same time. So now we have T5, which we just invested some money in and has been performing fairly well. We'll have T6 and we have T7. Those alone will allow us to stand enough power, as much as I believe 62 kilowatts, in case the substation does go down for whatever reason. However unlikely, but we are prepared. Because it's that one event where something that can go wrong or does go wrong with the substation, and us getting caught with no redundancy. So obviously it's an obligation to have that modern, reliable, equally reliable, kind of to stand up on moment's notice if the substation is actually down. And one thing we're working very hard on improving our communication with Entergy. I mean, we do tabletops. We've improved the one-on-one at multiple levels connectivity. So we're always communicating. So it's going to be key for us to know if something will happen, for us to be able to ready again to stand up our own equipment. So it's a very legitimate question, and hopefully we're addressing it very responsibly from the onset.
Recently, you told the board of directors that you would be training sewage and water board staff. Obviously, anyone you would hire would undergo training in order to operate this new and improved power system. Can you get into more specifics here insofar as, will any Entergy personnel be involved with its substation, and where would the sewage and water board staff be inserted? And are we talking about 24/7 type employees that would be there when the need arises to put the different parts of this into play? Understanding too, you've already mentioned something about, to a certain extent, it's an automated system.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing we're doing now is we started changing the culture with the current system. We're introducing more robust standard operating procedures for our folks. We're kind of introducing, kind of good practices. So the mentality is already changing. The culture is already changing from within without even touching anything new. But we're at the same time, we are starting to write what the requirements are for specific personnel to be able to manage this new systems, right? Talking to other folks who have newer plants, whether it's generation or whether they're relying on outside power, to stand up again as strong, skilled. And we have a lot of folks from within who will be transitioning with the system itself, with new skill set and training. So that is the only way we think we may need few skill set from the outside that we will, obviously will bring on, but we are very confident we're going to rely on who we have now to improve the skill sets, and then get them all equipped and conditioned to handle the new one. So that is happening, kind of, again, one of the other moving parts, so to speak, that is transitioning as well. We have people writing the requirements and the job descriptions, and see how the current folks can transition and fit in those roles.
You feel though there's going to reach a point where you'll have to hire new staff simply because the in-house staff may not have the qualifications needed or won't be able to receive the training within that time frame?
I mean, all remains to be seen. We're open to, I mean, we owe it to ourselves to bring the needed skill set, either from build it from within or bring it from the outside. So obviously the go-to by default is, can we maximize and optimize the, the skill set that we have and the desire for folks to want to stay, remain part of the Sewage and Water Board. That's going, we're gonna invest in those folks that have that strong desire to continue to be part of our team. But it is definitely not off the table to bring anybody who we need from the outside to help us be successful. I mean, it's a responsibility and obligation for us.
Have there been discussions about like working with a third-party contractor that would essentially be tasked with operating this? It sounds like you're down the road far enough to where there obviously will be in-house staff assigned to this, but was there any ever discussion in regards to let's assign all of this to a contractor and we'll hold that contractor accountable and not have to necessarily deal with it from an HR perspective?
It was discussed, and where we landed, to be honest with you, is that we are going to buy a lot of new equipment, and we are buying maintenance contracts with these to make sure that whoever's selling us a product stands behind that product and will help us maintain it. But it's also part of a training and long range strategy would also allow our folks to learn and take on the responsibility at certain time. So it's a combination, but if you're talking about like a private operator just taking wholesale responsibility, I don't see that happening at this point. I honestly feel like there's a lot of not just institutional knowledge, but a lot of loyalty and ownership of what we're doing here, and a strong belief that a lot of people want to be part of that awesome responsibility of protecting the city. And to me, that's priceless. You mean you can hire people with skill set, but again, that big strong belief that we want to be part of the legacy of the Sewage and Water Board is definitely we have to capitalize on.
What would you say to the customer who may not have confidence in the in-house staff's ability to carry out this task, given one, manpower has been an issue. It is for a lot of folks right now. Two issues such as billing. The accuracy of billing continues to be kind of a climb there. What would your message be to customers in regards to confidence levels with this strategy moving forward on power?
Well, when it comes to drainage, what I would remind our customers and folks in the city is that we've had the wettest year, had the wettest season, already exceeded the average annual falls. And when we look back from January till this, we've done a tremendous job keeping the city dry with very, very key challenges. I mean, we were short on power in a significant way, as you know. Both T4 and T5 were gone, and our own folks were able to, I'm going to use the word, cobble together a configuration using what we have. And it was just a remarkable accomplishment that they were able to do what they did with the little. So it cannot be lost on people that we have a lot of dedicated and strong, skilled people in the Sewage and Water Board. Can we do better in some areas? Hands down. I mean, is billing an issue? Yes. And when it comes to billing, you have to really focus on a couple of the key challenges, which is the antiquated process itself of having to read in excess of 136,000 meters every day. I mean, every month. That's a tremendous task, and it's riddled with potential for error. I mean, there's hardly any automation. Talk about the weather, just difficulty of the job, and just on us for not having a proper or adequate rollout way back when that kind of set us back, and then we've been kind of climbing ourselves out of that. But yeah, it's not a reflection on our folks and lack of desire to do good work. It's the antiquated process, and we are in the midst of replacing it with automated meter infrastructure that hopefully will solve 99% of the issues that we're facing.
We're running short of time here that has been allotted here. I wanted to go back to, you were mentioning the plan for in-house redundancy, T6 being weatherized, good thing. Specs being drawn for T7, T5 back on its legs. It predated your hiring here in New Orleans, but I wonder if, so I wouldn't expect you to have direct knowledge, but I wonder if, like, you were told or asked prior to your arrival, I believe it was Siemens offered the city a pretty substantial discount on a 60 megawatt turbine. And I want to say that was it was after the summer 2017 floods. And then in the following spring, Siemens came back. I think a customer backed out for an 80 megawatt turbine. Was it ever explained to you, or did you ever ask why the city opted not